got stress conditioned by tradition, position, and religion. Do we listen or frozen in fiction? So division, not the mission. Trump, Biden gaps widen.
Welcome to Minding the Gap,
vision,
brought to you by Behavioral Sciences of Alabama. I'm Paul Bakke alongside Dr. David Barnhart, and we are licensed counselors with Behavioral Sciences Alabama, and we are going to talk about a rap song this morning.
Rap song.
You may, if you've seen our videos, when we decided to do the video, I, for some reason, got a rap song in my mind about what we talk about and what we're going to talk about on the videos. And so I just put together some lyrics, and probably took about a week and a half or so to get it all done with the music and everything. And you may have seen it, but I wanted to kind of break it down today and talk about really kind of what's going on now with our stress and how we deal with it, and maybe thought there'd be a creative and fun way to talk about it.
Timely as well. Very, very on target.
So
I'm looking forward to this. By the way,
okay.
if you haven't heard the rap song, go to the YouTube site. And by the way, I looked, and people are looking at that. They're listening to it.
That's good.
So it's we had 234 views on one of our podcasts recently.
Wow, that's
and so that's pretty good, not to be a major force in the YouTube world. So
we're reaching someone. So we definitely appreciate the people that watch and listen, and we hope that we're entertaining and also provide a little bit of a help. And it really is about thinking. It's about thinking about things, thinking about stress, thinking about how we respond to it. And the thing that we talk about a lot is the way we deal with that instinctually or based on our conditioning often is just not helpful. I mean, that's just the human nature to, because we have a survival instinct to protect, often we respond with in ways of protecting that isn't necessary. And so really what we're talking about is stopping and thinking and strategizing about dealing with all the difficulties that we have to deal with. And we've had some big ones. The pandemic, was a big one. The social unrest of the summer and the entire year. And then now our Capitol has been attacked. And so we have so much division and so much unrest and upset. It's a good time to think about how to respond to that. So
yes, so I think part of it is that we don't really have a basic understanding of why we do the things we do. And we have a lot of interest in why we do the things we do, and we spend time looking at it, and our the work we do is informed by empirical evidence, and also in recent years by neuroscience. So we're all constrained by the way we've come up in the world and how we've been influenced by other people.
All right. So the more aware we are of it, the more we can make conscious decisions about really what to do next.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about the rap song. So I'm going to take it verse by verse. And so the first line of it is, "We got stressed." Now that is a brilliant, I mean, how much more brilliant and poetic can you be than "We got stressed"?
We got stressed
by Captain Obvious. Okay. So the first part is "We got stressed." The idea of, okay, we're dealing with a lot. Okay. So should I put it on the screen or just say it? What do you think?
Make yourself happy. Put it up there.
All right, I'll put it up there, and then I'll take it off just to.
Okay. Yeah, so we got stress is true, and so the effect of stress is that it's like inflammation in the body and in the brain, and so it over the course of time, the cortisol, the stress hormone, has an impact on how healthy we are, and there's some wonderful there's wonderful science around this as well. So yeah, so we got stress. It may be Captain Obvious, but dang sure is important.
We got stress. Okay. Cause we're striving, surviving, keep on moving to improving, rearranging. The whole world's changing. Pandemic, systemic, rule making, rule breaking, disagreeing. Are we fighting or fleeing?
Well, I like the parentheses says pause.
Yeah, that was for the songs.
No, but what a great idea.
Or we can pause and think about it. Either one of those.
Thank you. Oh man.
So take about
say what you got on your mind. I'll jump in.
Okay. All right. So let me say it again. All right. So we got stressed because we're striving, surviving, keep on moving to improving, rearranging. The whole world's changing. Pandemic, systemic, rule making, rule breaking, disagreeing. Are we fighting or fleeing? Comments about those words.
Summary. It summarizes our day-to-day life and how we're impacted by the things that aren't that occur in the world. It really illustrates our motivation to work toward a goal. So we got our head down, or nose to the grindstone, go to work every day, support the family. There's enough going on just trying to take care of yourself, stay healthy, and support your family. And then we have these other things that jump in there.
Pandemic.
My goodness.
All the idea about the systemic injustices that people are protesting about. And so are we fighting about it? Are we running away from it? And I think I've recognized for myself that I probably tend to run away from it. Just in terms of not want to watch the news. Gosh, I don't want to. It's upsetting. It's depressing. It's bad news. Really kind of until recently, I've just sort of kept up with it some, but I think I'm kind of more engaged in it than I have been, just because there's so much and so much on the line, right? So that's the question. Fighting. Are we fighting? Are we running away from it? Are we addressing it in ways that help? But when we have all that, what's the first thing in our brain that responds to it? The amygdala.
Good old amygdala.
Fight or flight.
Yes, yeah.
Fight
Threat
or flight.
detection.
Threat detection. And there's there's perceived threats all over the place, on top of the normal ones that we have every day. So then the chorus is, we got a mind. I got a mind. And the stress divides me. The stress often influences me to be divided with myself, because I don't feel the way I would like to feel, or the stress is creating maybe a behavior that has divided me from my principles, because I've responded out of stress. Because the stress is divided, has created a thought or a feeling that has made me go up against my fellow man. It divides us. And so
can even make us snap at our families.
Right. So it's a big divider. The stress divides me, and I want to mind the gap. I want to use my mind to close those gaps that divide me from myself and me from people, whether it's my family or somebody that I really don't agree with,
Mhm.
because there's value in closing gaps with people who you don't agree with things on, because we have to, we're sharing the world. So why don't you help me? Okay, it's the
Yes,
last
yeah,
part of the chorus.
right.
It's an encouragement to join that.
Well, and so the gap, we talk about gaps a lot, and from a self-control standpoint, um, part of what we do is to ask people to mind the gap, to look. It's very brief. When you're triggered, we have the response, the threat detection takes about 40 milliseconds. It's really fast, and it's a lot faster than our conscious awareness of the trigger. So that's a constraint that we all have. And I think it helps to know that, because it explains why people fly off the handle or say something that they wish they could take back, they regret, or they get arrested because they impulsively responded to something, and and then on reflection they go, I don't know why I did that. Gosh, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah. See, weren't thinking straight.
That's right. And so there's this gap between a trigger's appearance and our thinking that approaches 250 milliseconds, which is still fast. And to us, it seems like all of this is occurring at the same time, but it's not. There's a gap. And because we can start looking for the trigger and practice a way of responding, we can influence that amygdala, that emotional response, to begin to move in a different direction. You use a metaphor to talk about that process that I think is very helpful. I share that a lot with people. Maybe you can talk about that some.
Oh, the elephant.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's I borrowed that from Jonathan Haidt from The Righteous Mind. The idea of our emotions are, he talks about it being like an elephant, and an elephant, and the rider is rational thought,
Mm-hmm.
and the elephant is in charge. So
Yeah.
so often what happens is we have a feeling, and that feeling leans us in a certain direction, towards a certain belief, towards a certain behavior, and our emotional and our rational thinking, the rider, just makes sure that way is clear, and and looks out to make sure that. And so a lot of times what happens is we have an emotion of behavior, and then we have post hoc reasoning, which is, I'll rationalize why my elephant went that way and what I'm going to do in the future, because I had a feeling that's connected to it. And like you were saying, it's just all happening so fast that that we don't, unless we really step back and look at it, it's just sort of an automatic process that becomes conditioned. And so the idea is, how do you influence an elephant to move in a different direction? You got to be an elephant charmer. you got to make the elephant feel better. So if we engage in if we step back and think, then our thinking can help us go, well, maybe that way is not helpful. Maybe that way is not good, because I can really think about what happened before and what can happen if I do that. If I do something impulsively that I feel like doing, I might, the cops might get called on me, or what,
Mm-hmm.
or, I might get in trouble or whatever it is. That feeling, sometimes that feeling is wrong. That feeling based on protection,
Mm-hmm.
is this, there's not danger here. I just feel like there is. Okay. So, all right, let's go this next verse here. All right. We got stress conditioned by tradition.
Mhm.
position and religion, quick decision. Are we frozen in fiction? So division, not the mission, Trump or Biden, gaps widen, transition, blurred vision, a soul collision.
Yeah, that's a good description, isn't it? Of what's going on.
We're
Do that again.
conditioned.
That was pretty
Okay,
good.
yeah.
Let's do that again.
All right, so let
Let's
me
reflect upon that one. It's a good
reflect on it,
meditation. Yeah.
and we got stress conditioned by tradition, position, and religion. So let's talk about that. You know, we're conditioned by tradition, the way we're brought up, the way we the countries we live in, a culture we live in, our families, people around us, our friends, position where we are. You know, we our position is an influencer.
Yes.
And people who are in positions that they like want to stay in those positions. So so there's motivation, there's conditioning by your status and your position. Religion, that's a big one. A lot of people, you know, have very strong religious beliefs, and those can be interpreted in several different ways often. And we're conditioned by those. And being conditioned doesn't mean brainwashed and it's a bad thing. You know, that we're going to be conditioned.
Yeah. Condition is really, it's learning.
It's just reality. It's just what we've learned, what's been reinforced over time, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. It's conditioning.
Behavior and thinking.
Behavior and thinking.
Even our body response to something is conditioned.
Yeah. And so we're, and stress, we're conditioned by stress. We're conditioned by the things that are around us, because that's an influencer that conditions our response and the way we think about it. It either conditions us to continue something or conditions us to say, well, wait a second, you know, that's not helping me, right? All right, quick decision. Amygdala.
Yes, right away.
Quick.
You know, and maybe just let's think about other positions, like teenagers. Where do they fit in the group? We know that if you're with your peer group, there's probably something like a 40% increase in the probability that you'll do something impulsive that's influenced by the group. And not that you're thinking about it, and teenagers deny, oh, you know, I do, but that's just denial of the same things that adults are influenced by.
That's right. We've talked, and I think we've talked about this before. You know, when your family teaches a value, and you go up, and you're little, and you go, I'll never do that. You know, never do, you know, this drugs or bully someone or you know, do something that's against my family values. And then you get around a bunch of kids that you like, that are pretty good kids too, and they have good values, and then suddenly it just seems like the thing to do to pick on the weak kid, or someone decides to try drugs or alcohol. It's a strong influencer. It's a strong influencer. And group influence is the strongest way to change someone's thinking and behavior, because it just feels like it's okay to do that when you like other people that do that. So that, you know, and that's what's happening now is especially with Twitter and the social media and all that, and people can find a group that agrees with their position.
Right. And it's self-reinforcing.
How often is there really a debate about, okay, I see your point. Yeah. Okay. I see that. You have a valid point right there. Well, here's mine. You know, I have another one. Oh yeah. Yours is valid too. You know, how can we, how often do you see that on Twitter or something? It's snap. I'm mad, and I put it on there, and then people go, yeah. And then you see somebody else that goes, well, what about this? You know, and it's,
or there's an insult,
It's an insult, right? So we can get dug into our position by the support that we get from other people, and it discourages openness. It discourages the idea of, you have something important to say. There's a reason you feel that way. I'm interested in hearing it. And then, can you listen to mine, and maybe we can respect each other's views, because we do have commonality. We do have things in common that there's, we want some of the same things. Most people have a lot of commonalities. But we get really, the position that we put ourselves in based on our conditioning with friends and so forth.
And it seems, some of it seems so far out to us. But if we did what you're talking about, if we could drill down and find out what was underneath, we might have some empathy. We might see a point that could be addressed. We see this often in people who have OCD. So they have a distorted response to a false alarm, basically. So if we think about contamination, since we're in a pandemic, maybe that's something to think about. A person has a fear of getting a germ and getting sick. Well, that's actually based in objective reality. I mean, we know, because we do have some science that has educated most of us, and so we can see where it comes from. But the distortion, the repetition of the thought and the anxiety associated with it is self-reinforcing. So it's like a loop. The same thing happens, different circumstances, but people get a certain idea about things, some conspiracy, and it gets reinforced, and our brains respond by creating new, stronger pathways the more we think and imagine those, whatever those things are that have us disturbed. Right. So it becomes very automated.
And people are vulnerable to that. They're vulnerable because they may have some, they have legitimate worries. They have legitimate concerns. And so, in politics, it's, there's really no rules. There aren't any rules. There aren't any rules. You use information.
Seems to be about winning.
It's about winning. Yeah. You use information to win, right? To attack the other side. There's a really interesting documentary called "Get Me Roger Stone." I recommend everybody that's listening to watch that. And he's a political advisor, consultant. He's made millions of dollars doing this, and he said attack, never defend. That's one of his principles. One of his principles is attack the other side, attack. So it's about attack. And then another one, really interesting one, is that hate is a stronger motivator than love. Think about that. Think about that as a political strategy.
Sure.
to get people riled up on purpose to get on your side.
It's wired into our, we sometimes say our brains are Velcro for negativity. And that it's true, because the first response is survival. And so if we feel threatened, then we're more likely to respond, and that'll take precedence over positive emotions, just from survival standpoint.
It's just so it's a device that can be used to manipulate people's beliefs, and that was kind of the next line is, are we frozen in fiction? Where are we getting our information? And just like you were saying, there's some truth to germs and those kinds of things, there's some, so, and then it becomes conditioned to, oh, this germ means this, and it gets exaggerated and conditioned with OCD. With trauma, you know, there's a real trauma that's happened.
Right.
And so then the person is triggered, the feeling of the trauma happens, and the person is triggered, and they're experiencing the feeling that's connected to the trauma, and it feels like it's happening again, and they defend themselves against the threat that really isn't there. It's just a memory, it's just a feeling that's connected to it. So there's some truth to this. There's this pain or this difficulty or this trauma or this memory, and it becomes, like we've said it before, without information, without all the information, our brains make the rest of it up, because it needs to figure out what's happening.
Yes.
What's happening and what do I do about it? And if it's a threat, I better respond to it right now.
Yes.
Right. So are we frozen in fiction? We live in fiction a lot. You know, that's not just about these big conspiracy theories. You know, it's not just about that. That's how it happens, but that's how we live our lives. We're assessing things and we don't have all the information. So that's the idea, is let's get the information. And how much can we really have? So all the stuff that's going on now politically, let's say the election. We don't have all the information about what exactly happened in every election. We're never going to know. But we do have a system. Are you saying
that we need to learn how to live with uncertainty?
We have to live with uncertainty, and then what's the gap there? It's, do I trust or do I not? That's the decision. Do I trust the system? Do I trust is the system worked before? Is it flawed? What's the process? And if we don't trust it, then we're more vulnerable to when somebody says fraud.
Right? Right.
You know,
well,
but the bottom line is we're not going to know. We are not going to know all of it.
No, I mean, I know a couple of people that work a poll in the precinct where I vote, and I just have a lot of trust in them. Do I know? I can be informed. I can have people can observe polling places and vote counting. I mean, we do have a strategy to be able to do that. And
there are people from both sides of the party that are involved in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That helps the trust when we know that.
It does. Accountability.
There's a Secretary of State that's a Republican. There's a Secretary of State that might be a Democrat, and you know, if so.
Accountability is part of trust.
There's accountability that goes. There is a process of it, and then there's also a process of state certification, and then there's process of the courts, you know, bringing evidence about it, and then it gets to the Senate, and that's where you know the major thing happens.
But here you are thinking about it, and if you weren't open to really looking at what the process is like and understanding how it works, you could have a totally different emotional response to it.
Right. Especially if you're in a setting where you're getting that's reinforced, the mistrust is being reinforced, and the idea that thousands of people are in on this, and let's just suspend Murphy's Law, you know, here, that if something can go wrong, it will, and nobody is telling. So you know, it's finding as much fact as you can, and deciding based on what you can know in the process. And I talked about this a lot with people who have complaints at work, you know, people who have who have complaints at work that are upset about how they're being treated and things like that, and I'll talk to them about, okay, that's a legitimate feeling that you have, and okay, what's the process of taking that complaint and getting it dealt with? Let's go through the process, and if you go through the process and you're not satisfied, then there's legal processes, to go by, and then there's, okay, maybe it's time to look for another job, but that's the thing, is when we are upset about things, what is the process that that lends itself to the most helpful solution to it? And if it doesn't work out the way you want it to, and we talk about this all the time, acceptance is a really important part of all of this. And acceptance doesn't mean
you
I like it or
Right.
agree with it. It just means this is how this is. And if I want to change some of that, then maybe I can get involved in something that help that change. Or sometimes it's just healthier for the person to just accept it, because you're not going to get as upset, and you're going to just be able to deal with the reality of things that, because not everything can be proven. There's limits to, there's no system is perfect. It's going to have justice all the time. I mean, it's just not. You have people involved in it, and you have a burden of proof and all those kinds of things. You're just not going to, it's not possible for everything to be fair and equal all the time.
That's the way it is. And what we're trying to do is use our emotional intelligence to live our lives, and to associate with people that we love and care about, and not be mentally ill or physically ill.
Okay, so all right, so the next part was SOW division, SOW the division, not the mission. I don't think that's the mission of humanity, to SOW division, but
unless you make a living that way.
But some people do.
Perhaps
some people make a living dividing people. I mean, that's if you can get on, if you can keep the fight up, you have a position,
right?
And we talk to families, people that are in families that there's a lot of conflict in the family, and they just learn that conflict is normal, and there's just going to be fighting happening. You and I don't think that's healthy in a family, to accept that we're just going to fight all the time and berate each other. We don't want them to accept that, because you can do something about it. You can change, you can take yourself out of that situation by some strategies, right? But that becomes conditioned, the division and perpetuating hatred and having an enemy gives people a cause. It gives it feels good to be engaged in a fight, that you really believe in. So that's an issue too. And people that are in positions where they can get a message out can take advantage of that real fast. And then a soul collision, right? And that's kind of what
soul collision. Yes.
What's happened? All right. Next one would be same right, different wrong. Unfamiliar must not belong. Fill that gap in a snap. Changing my thinking, that just takes too long. Pedal to the metal with the engine light on. So the engine's running hot, but let's go.
Fire it up.
Let's go. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well,
same right, different wrong.
Exactly.
Unfamiliar doesn't belong.
Yep. Well, gosh, there's a lot in that. Part of it is, feeding the beast, so pedal to the metal, engines running hot. So the tendency is, once you're flooded, is to you lose control. And we see that in families. People get flooded emotionally, get flooded, and you can see there's a physiological response to that. So sometimes I've had couples wear a pulse watch in sessions, and then set the alarm to go off at 100, right? And so they're talking about an area that's a problem, and usually with a third party in the room, people manage themselves pretty well. But your heart rate can still hit 100, and you don't even know that you're becoming flooded. And so that watch will go beep, 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 and people will go, what is that? And I'm saying, well, your pulse just hit 100. Well, how could that be? Well, that's called being flooded. So emotionally, you were on edge to start with, and then you start talking about a problem, and now this is where bad stuff happens.
Yeah, and in the Capitol invasion, you had thousands of people that were flooded.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And encouraging each other in the anger and the upset, So back to the same right, different wrong. If it doesn't look and feel familiar and right to me, it must be wrong. And so I have to defend myself, and I have to think about, and fill the gap in a snap, respond quickly. And then once I'm going, I'm flooded, which leads to the next one, which is hurry, flurry, worry, flood of chemicals. Hurry, flurry, worry, the stress is palpable. Hurry, flurry, worry, hold up. This is where, we try to intervene in the gap, hit pause. And the next line is, your mind is bendable, flexible, stretchable, plentiful, sensible, teachable, reachable, equable. It's like a festival, testable, accessible, purposeful, intentional. Mind's in the gap. We can reach for the pinnacle.
That's what counseling is all about.
That's right. That's right. We have a mind that we know how. We have brains that can change.
Yes.
We're not fixed that way. We've been conditioned. It's difficult to change the way we think and the way we behave, for sure, especially if we've been conditioned for a long time. But when we see people come to counseling, they've decided something's not right, and I've got to do something different. A lot of times they'll come in and they think it's the other person,
Oh yeah, fix them for me.
Or yeah,
it reminds me. I was talking to a person recently, and he said, so something's out of place. He named something is out of place, and and I said it should be there, and it's not there, and I get angry, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to explode on my children, So today it's with the stress of all of the stuff that's going on, the pandemic, and whether you have enough income, and all of this stuff, and worrying about people, your relatives, you're walking around with a higher level of stress than usual, and so you're more likely to be triggered by small things that, on reflection, you go, that's just not that important. It doesn't matter that was in the place that I didn't want it to be.
Right.
So,
right. But in the moment, because we're on high alert, it feels more important than it is, and that's why the elephant starts leaning that way, and we just the natural tendency, the instinct is to just go with it, and pausing is really the thing that helps us reevaluate. All right, so next one. Different could be right, same could be wrong, unfamiliar just might belong. Do we fill those gaps in a snap? Reevaluation, that's the heart of this song.
Yes, and there's a lot of evidence that that when we reevaluate and we come up with a different way of thinking, an alternative that's true. I mean, again, we're trying not to lie to ourselves. What's accurate? How can I think about this? Reappraisal um, changes the emotional response. So there's plenty of evidence, functional MRI evidence, pre, post, what happens when people change their thinking about a stressor. So we can change our brains.
We changed. We can. It's about reevaluation, and we've talked about the GoFar test. Does that thought help me meet my goals? Does it help me get along with other people? Does it make me feel the way I want to feel? Does it keep me alive? And is it based in reality or is it fiction?
Mm-hmm.
Or so those are the kinds of things that help us kind of move towards helpful responses. All right, the next line is from Frankl. It's not exactly the quote, but between trigger and response, a space to use our minds. In that gap, the power to choose. In the choice, freedom, growth, and I added identity in there. And I wonder this. I wonder if Viktor Frankl is. I wonder if he shows up in any other rap song.
I doubt it. I believe you have.
I'm gonna just claim that I'm the only person to write a rap song with a quote from Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, man, he what an amazing person. Survived Auschwitz, psychiatrist, from Austria. Um, quite an amazing person, and that quote really illustrates what we're trying to do. And your song is really all about that. What can we do? And we see people. It's illustrated if you watch a dang football game, right? These people, so quarterback takes the ball and within 1.5 seconds gets rid of it after doing about 3 or 4 reads. They get really fast at doing it. And how'd they do that? Well, they practice. So if you're going to change your brain, we're doing the same kind of thing emotionally. We're trying to think, how do I need to think when I hit this situation? So it's a good analogy. People learn to do these things with their bodies, but it's all about the mind anyhow.
Yeah.
We can do the same thing with our thinking and our emotions and our behavior.
And Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning book, which we highly recommend to anybody to read. It's really puts things in perspective really for all of us, because he got a chance to live the Holocaust and use his mind to survive. He used his mind to stay healthy, and he saw other people give up, just sort of give up hope and just allow themselves to get completely consumed with it, and died. Just got sick and died and didn't survive. And so his story, when one of the benefits of it is the mechanics of it and the techniques that he talked about, but another benefit is, wow, if somebody could use their mind to survive being imprisoned while his friends are being taken off and killed right in front of his eyes, then we can do that with our pain, because we don't have to deal with that.
We have a lot more.
All of the stuff that we have to deal with. It's not being imprisoned and watching our people being, there's thankfully, that we don't have to deal with that. Now, the things that we're dealing with, a lot of things aren't good. I don't want to minimize that, but the idea is, wow, he was able to use that. Why wouldn't we do that here. We have a choice. We do have a choice in that gap, and it's small, and that's why it takes some thinking and some planning and some practicing, like you said. But our growth and our freedom, our growth and identity, where is that going to lead us to? And that leads us to the next, the last part of the song, which is peace or brutality, truth or fake reality. I was going to say fake news, but I didn't. But it didn't rhyme with brutality.
There's no rhyme there.
Happiness or misery, empathy or injury, unity or weaponry, decency or crudity, order or mess, more or less, easy or stress, know or guess. We have the power, because you and me got a mind, and the stress divides me, and I want to mind the gap. Why don't you join me?
I think I will. Thanks, Paul. That was really good. I enjoyed it.
Well, enjoyed talking about it. It was, it's relevant to what we're talking about. And I didn't write it just because I thought it was cool to write a rap song. I wrote it because this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with, and I want to be a part of the solution in any way that I can. And if I could write a rap song, and if we could talk about this on a video and stimulate people to think about things and reevaluate things and move forward in helpful ways, then Viktor Frankl talked about finding meaning, and that really is everybody's goal in life, is finding meaning, even in suffering and difficulty. And so if I could find meaning in perpetuating helpful things and ways to respond to what we're dealing with that unify us. And so I'm just trying to do my little tiny part.
Well, it's very good, and we want people to have that song in their minds. Just
put it in your mind.
Walk around with it.
Walk around with it. Think about it. When you get upset, hum that little tune in your mind, and that'll be great.
That'll be good.
All right. All right. Well, good talking to you once again, and thanks everybody for listening. Please subscribe, rate, review, help us get the message out.
See you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
So, all right, you can cut it off, I guess, anytime.
Yeah.
Just cut it off. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You got a busy day?
Yeah. I've